football card collecting and investing. It's what we do, man. I don't want to shout out everyone for helping us grow this show and growing the Fantasy Football Card Quest Network. And Andy, today you have been putting in a lot of work for hype cycles and hype index. So what is the biggest takeaway with all the latest research you've done when it comes to those few topics?
Yeah, when it comes to those few topics, the biggest takeaways, man, about the hype index is that you can't just look at a player's projected fantasy output or even their projected real NFL output, which is, how fantasy points are derived. But you got to look at their rookie status. You got to look at their Hall of Fame marker. You got to look at the media events surrounding this player, like how likable and popular they are off the field, and the kind of things that they're into off the field apply big time in the hobby. And you've also got to look at that market size of the team. So all those factors are into the hype index that really matter. They matter a lot in the hobby, Carter.
Yeah, and what's interesting, if you are watching on YouTube, you get to see an example of what Andy put together here. The most important thing for me is for people to understand that there are so many different variables when it comes to football cards compared to fantasy football, right? In fantasy football, you have a player, they put up a certain amount of points, you know what the metrics are. Football cards is different. You have markets, you have money involved, and that's why, Andy, price is so very important when it comes to putting together this hype index, but more importantly, when it comes to whoever listening to this is actually going to buy a card. It is very important to make sure you consider all the different factors.
Yeah, because you take this, right, which bakes in their expectation for 2022, like how well they expect it to perform, and you can kind of gauge that by, fantasy football analysis. But then you take their overall performance rank, which carries over from how they did in 2021. You also look at the power ranking of their team that they're on. What does ESPN and NFL.com say as their projected Super Bowl odds for 2022? And then you look at their rookie status, which we know is very important because that drives that fear of missing out. The younger they are, the more unknown they are, the more excited people can get more easily. And then, of course, their Hall of Fame marker status. That's why, you can see that little blue candlestick there for Tom Brady is taller by far than any of the other quarterbacks. And then, of course, the market size. But then you got to take this and you've got to compare. You've got to go to eBay and compare the rookie card sold value or the veteran card sold value of these cards and find comparable scarcity cards to look at what they've recently sold for to really find your buy low target. So just because Tom Brady is the number one on this chart does not mean he's the guy you should be investing in, because his cards, as we know, are very expensive. So you also have to do that research of looking at what the card values are currently selling at to kind of find your buy low target.
Yeah, and look, the prices are sometimes baked into the player already, right? Let's just say whoever out there is the biggest believer in Justin Herbert, that he is going to be the next Tom Brady. Well, if you watched a few episodes ago, the biggest determining factor when you did another price analysis with the charts was getting to the Super Bowl. That is the number one thing that can really blow up a quarterback's hype cycle. You got to ask yourself this question. Justin Herbert, can he get to the Super Bowl next year with the Chargers? Absolutely he can. It's going to be really hard because that Russell Wilson guy is still in there. And Andy, you and I were discussing this just a few minutes ago before we started recording. I know this is cliche, but you should always zig when everyone else zags, right? And over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Trey Lance rookie ticket autos go for no less than $800 a pop. We've seen Trevor Lawrence rookie ticket autos go for no less than $800 a pop. We've yet to see them actually even really play or even play well. Whereas you have a guy like Russell Wilson who's already won a Super Bowl. You can see his PSA 10 and his PSA 10 rookie ticket autos. There were bids and sellings of that card for $2,500. And I know that sounds exponentially more than the cards I just mentioned, but obviously Russell Wilson's rookie ticket auto is more scarce, and PSA 10 can't get any better than that. So I understand it is for a lot of people, Andy, everyone wants to go to the hot thing, the new releases. But sometimes it's very important to really put into work and see if you can get opportunities such as that one to buy a legendary player who, obviously with Russell Wilson, he's still playing. You could still get that Super Bowl factor if the Broncos somehow make the Super Bowl. It's a pretty amazing thing, Andy, whenever you find deals such as that one and make moves such as that one. It just feels so great in your heart.
Yeah, it sure does. There's a lot of safety in that Russell Wilson card, and you can see it here in the chart because you notice that the rookie element is not there with Russell Wilson, right?
Right.
We're also coming off of a bad season for him, so his overall performance rank from last year wasn't great. He had the biggest injury of his career and missed about 6 weeks. So a lot of those factors are, that's what's driving his card value down. Those are going under the radar. But look, he's in one of the top, my second top tier of quarterbacks, right, with Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott. So when you look at the power ranking of the Denver Broncos, I mean, yeah, I think that this is a very safe investment when you compare the scarcity of his rookie ticket auto compared to that of Trevor Lawrence, who's the smallest market size in the nation, in the Jacksonville Jaguars, a very slim possibility of them making the playoffs. So the only thing Trevor Lawrence has got going for him is the rookie status and the draft pedigree.
Yeah, and the new coach. And something else that is very key, Andy. All right, so a lot of people can't actually see this chart right now, but this is what being the new shining thing can do to a product. Because if you are looking at this graph, it is in very small print, but Deshaun Watson, who was the biggest story in the NFL, now once again, there's extracurriculars and we won't get into that, but what's really interesting is Kyle Trask has a higher hype index than that of Deshaun Watson, and that lets you know what the rookie status can do to a card. So that is really fascinating, and this is why we do this show, because I made this mistake where I poured a lot of money into Joe Burrow college uniform cards, and Andy once again told me to sell those, and that's how we became friends. I just told the story about how we started this all together, but that's why it's very important to look at these prices, right? So in other words, if you are sitting on a Kyle Trask card, he's not playing anytime soon. Sell that son of a gun, right? What are you doing? Sell it now. Stop listening to this podcast because we want to help you make money. Sell that Kyle Trask card right the you-know-what now, right? That's why it's very important, Andy, to look at that and strike when the market is hot.
Yeah, there's a likely possibility that the minute Kyle Trask steps foot on an NFL field and plays an actual down in a real NFL game, his card values are going to go down from where they're at now. And that's just the speculation, the fact that he hasn't played in a regular NFL game on an NFL field. We're going off the limited time we saw from him at the University of Florida, where he has a lot of comparables to Joe Burrow's season from 2019, except without the national championship and everything. That's the kind of stuff that people are currently drawing. But the minute he steps foot on the field, that's when, not to mention the fact that whenever that time does happen, whenever Tom Brady does decide to retire or God forbid, he gets injured, but that's when the Kyle Trask stock is likely to go down because the expectations are sky high at the present moment, coupled with the scarcity, the limited supply of his rookie product in a professional uniform. That's why, and the Bucs have, they're one of the best teams in the NFL when Tom Brady is on the roster. So that's what's, boosting him up the hype index chart right now.
Yeah. And look, a few things I want to get to when it comes to the rookie class. The first thing, obviously, is in football cards, it doesn't always correlate when you play really well that the price of the cards actually go up, right? Like there's plenty of examples even outside of the sport of football where, the price of a card correlated with performance, right? Like, the most famous example of this was in a different sport, Zion Williamson, where his PSA 10 Prism cards were going for a lot of money. He played, and his prices pretty much stayed the same. And to use a football example here, Andy, is Josh Allen, right? PSA 10 Prism Josh Allen base cards before the season were going for over $900. Now you could get one for in the 600, 700 range just because. And Josh Allen played as well as he possibly could in the playoffs, and he's got as much hype as anyone. And they just got Von Miller, and Stephon Diggs took less money to stay with the team. Well, you know what? There was a shift in the actual version of the card where, base wasn't as important as rarity and autos and patches. So that's why, you do these hype indexes, Andy, and you do all this content. And this is why we do the show, is that just because you got that PSA 10 Prism Josh Allen at 900 and he played obviously amazing this past year, doesn't mean that card is going to go for 1,500. So even Trevor Lawrence right now, let's say he goes out there and just balls out of control, there's no promise that even his Prism cards go up or down because of it.
Yeah, and we talked about last week the new product coming out here in just a couple weeks, Prism Optic Select. We're talking major releases that are going into retail stores everywhere. So there is going to be a lot of it flooding the marketplace over the next several months heading into September. And it's like, here's the thing. Josh Allen was the #1 quarterback again last year, in terms of projected expectation or projected performance heading into 2021. What happened week 1? They lost to the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1. And it was like, oh my God, the Buffalo Bills are not who we thought they were. And now, of course, they bounced back from him. Josh Allen ended up having some incredible, miraculous games, including the playoffs, like you talked about, and finished as a QB1 again. But winning goes a long ways. Like, you can be the greatest fantasy player all day, but if your team's not winning, then ultimately that's gonna hold your card values back from going up, because we've seen that the playoffs and the Super Bowl drive card values up like no other event. It is the #1 hype-driven event in the football card market.
It is. And Andy, obviously, with the hype cycle, we are just looking at quarterbacks, but obviously, this can translate to other positions. Now, I will give a cliffhanger here. I'm going to give 2 quarterback plays at the end of the episode. So make sure you stay till the very end. And if you are enjoying this football card content, 5-star review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Now, Andy, as far as, just your overall hype analysis, we gave a little bit of an overview. What are some, obviously some factors that go into it is rookie status, what you've done as a player, market size, prices, and all of that. So there is so much that goes into your calculations. What have you taken away not only from quarterbacks, but just wide receivers and running backs as this football market has stayed hot?
Well, as you can see, that there is no comparable to Tom Brady. I mean, he truly is in a league of his own from his Hall of Fame marker status and what he does for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen can't even keep up with the guy because of what he's already done on the field and the limited scarcity around his cards from his rookie card. I mean, literally a fraction, like a 40th of, the rookie cards available for him. But I'll say my biggest takeaway is that these are off-season rankings. So the one thing that we don't is previous week's performance, like what their current record is, what their current standing is in the NFL. And so those are major. So once the season starts, all of a sudden the expectation turns to a negative number that takes away from the current week's production. So if currently right now, if I have Tom Brady ranked as in my second tier of production quarterback, which a lot of fantasy analysts are ranking Tom Brady, you'll see him routinely go at the back end of the first round in a super flex fantasy draft right now, best ball fantasy draft. And so if he comes out and the first week finishes as the QB 20, and the Bucs lose, you're going to see a dip in his card prices that following week, because now all of a sudden we've got to take away the expectation from what his current production was. And we could end with a negative number. He's going to drop significantly in that chart if Justin Herbert goes out and wins, Josh Allen goes out and wins, and they finish as top 5, top 10 QBs, and exceed those expectations. So That's the biggest takeaway from the chart right now. Now, what I do find very interesting is I can pinpoint guys like Kyle Trask and say, you know, if I can find deals on a guy like that, or if like there's several guys on here that jump out at me that I think I know you want to talk about as well later in this episode. But and they're really driven by some of the rookie status, some of the projected output combined with the market size and the power ranking of the team that I think people are allowing to be, you know, just flying under the radar.
I love it. And for me, Andy, obviously, you know, quarterbacks run the hobby, and, you know, wide receivers, it's very important to keep that in mind. But also running backs, you know, just overall, we've done a lot of running back content on this channel over the past couple of weeks. I stay away from running backs if they are overpriced. I do think there are some very interesting running backs to look into, but obviously we're focusing mostly on quarterbacks for right now. I do want to move on before we get into some specific plays that we would recommend people looking into. I do want to talk about a lot of your research you've done recently on grading companies. So, Andy, you've done a deep dive on obviously PSA, SGC, CSG, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was your major takeaway? As obviously PSA has opened back up for $50 submissions, but you got to get lucky. It's like a lottery, whatever. So what was your major takeaway from?
Yeah, you got to get lucky. My major takeaway is this. If you can get a PSA 10, like if you can guarantee yourself you're going to get a PSA 10 on a $50 submission, and you're not going to go over that $999 declared value, which would then bump you up into one of the higher tiers. And PSA does do their own comping on eBay, by the way. So they're looking at that, and that's what that whole happened with the Mark's card incident. So if you can get a PSA 10, that $50 is going to be well worth your while in most cases. We're talking rookie ticket autos for skill position guys. You know, of course, even base cards for some of the elite quarterbacks. A PSA 10 is going to be worth your while. However, that's only going to happen about 50% of the time. The data that I looked at, and shout out to David Hunter for helping me pull this data, is that on modern product, an ultra modern product, the percentage of time that you're getting a 10 is only about 50%. You know, so that's a coin toss. And for $50 to only have a 50% chance of getting a 10, and that's with good pre-grading process, you know, looking at a lighted microscope or just being very aware of what to look for in terms of corners, edges, centering, and surface, you know, it's a slim chance, right? So what I do is I look at companies like SGC, $30 a card, 20-25 business days. Now all of a sudden you have a higher declared value as well with them, up to $1,500 at that service. You get an SGC 10, it's going to be worth more than a PSA 9. You have a little bit higher probability to get an SGC 10 if you're doing pre-grading properly, and then your resale value is going to be well worth your while. Who's changing the game, Carter, is CSG, right? I didn't even talk about Beckett because most of their service options are closed down. It takes a while. It's $100 minimum per card, and it's just really nobody's really submitting to them right now. Not a lot of people. I think there's some people submitting to them maybe at card shows if they're there live and stuff, you know, doing some of that 5-hour turnaround grade. But CSG is changing the game. They've redesigned their label, Carter. No more green label with the big fat, you know, subgrades and the grade on the side. Their label looks a lot more like SGC now. It's black border. They've got the big number for the grade. They've also decided that every 9.5 that's currently in their database, they're going to re-slab that for you for a $5 fee and make it a 10. So whereas before the CSG 10 was unobtainable, the highest grade they virtually gave out was a 9.5, kind of like Beckett, how the BGS 10 is virtually unobtainable. There's very few of those out there. Now it's more of a PSA 10, SGC 10, and now a CSG 10. And the thing is, CSG has bulk submission offers available. You can submit 50 cards for $12 a card, up to $250 declared value. But for a lot of this fits perfectly into like our skill position type of players, you know, rookie ticket autos that we're picking up for $30, $40, $50, even numbered cards and nice cards. And then they have like a $25 and a $30 tier that has a higher declared value and stuff. But those are very interesting service options. You also know that CSG is backed by the largest paper and coin grading companies in the world. And they're doing the eBay authenticity guarantee. So they're intertwined with the hobby big time. I think their stock is going to continue to rise.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think anyone liked the slabs. I know that they were thinner or whatever. I don't think I've ever even held one of the slabs, to be honest. Like, I just didn't. I've never bought one. Never. I did like the redesign. I was able to get a look-see at that. I do like SGC a lot. Like, it's grown on me, right? And it's not just the fact that they're huge. You know, they slabbed a few like Honus Wagner cards and stuff like that. But, you know, I just like the way that they look. It's grown on me. Now, for me, PSA and Beckett slabs, I know this is very run-of-the-mill chalk, what I'm about to say. I do think their slabs are the best. But, man, SGC has grown on me. CSG has grown on me as well. I do think, Andy, there are some other potential people joining in that could be that next company. I know Dallas Card Investors, DCI, has very interesting slabs, and their raw review cards do go for a lot. And I do see their raw review. So for those that don't know what a raw review is, they do a raw review at like a show, or you could just send it to them, and they give you what they think the card would grade at a company. And I do see a lot of correlation, just anecdotally here, but I do see a lot of correlation that they're right. So they said, look, we're just going to slab our own cards, which I found to be very interesting. But there's always going to be new people coming in. And look, Andy, you've supported other new companies and all that stuff. The bottom line is, it's kind of like with the way we want running backs and wide receiver cards to be closer to what quarterbacks get. As much as we want it, it doesn't mean that it's going to change. The same thing comes with graded cards. PSA is just so far ahead of everybody else when it comes to their prices. So my next question for you, Andy, is, once again, with the lower submission levels and other people being open to other grading companies, have you, with your price analysis research, seen something that would tell you that PSA isn't, like, the gap between everyone else and PSA is going to close?
It may get tighter. I think it may get tighter as hobbyists get more and more knowledgeable and get more familiar with the grading processes of SGC, of CSG. You know, they're all using some form of AI assisted grading nowadays. And this is actually, I think this is bringing the grading companies closer together. Now, it's still a lot of its reputation, its brand loyalty. You know, it's the reason why you have certain, like, it's the reason why you have certain foods in the grocery store that sell incredibly well, and people continue to buy it, even though there's a box of food right next to it that tastes way better. It's just a brand that, you know, you haven't heard of. You know, it doesn't have that brand loyalty. So until you try it, and of course, we have this big dichotomy in the hobby of being a collector and not concerned with the value of the card at all, and just wanting it encapsulated in a nice holder, a nice slab, if you will, to put on your wall or whatever. And then there's the investment side of it, which is really driven by the PSA 10. That's still the flagship grade. That still holds the highest value, just because BGS 10s and SGC 10 gold labels are so unobtainable. And then you have BGS 9.5s and SGC 10s right around there. And the CSG 10s, I think are gonna fall right into the fold with the SGC 10 and the BGS 9.5. Now, I think that gap has got to close as investors kind of branch out and experiment a little bit more. They get an SGC slab in their hands, they get a CSG slab in their hands. I think that gap has got to close a little bit. I'm just not sure, you know, to what extent it's going to require quite a few people out there in the hobby to, you know, to take that leap of faith with a different grading company outside of PSA and the PSA 10.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that a lot of people are cracking BGS 9s and 9.5s, and those cards turning into PSA 10s, right? It doesn't help that PSA has, you know, the reputation that they don't grade as strict as the other companies. You would think it would be the other way around, that, you know, the other companies that aren't as prestigious as PSA or aren't worth as much as PSA, you would think that their grading standards would be different. So you do see, Andy, people crossing over and all of that. I'm not a big fan of that, you know, because that I didn't get into the hobby to get pliers out, to have surgery and crack slabs and all that stuff. It's just not me. Like, if you sell me a card in an HGA slab, I'm going to keep it in the HGA slab, right? It's just not, and then cracking it, making sure you don't scratch it and then subbing it and then waiting for it again. It's just not me. It's just not me. So, you know, I know a lot of people see that. I actually do get asked about that. Like, why is that person got pliers and taking it to that plastic, whatever? It just doesn't, it's not for me. I understand the money behind it. I understand why people do it. It's just something that it's not that big a deal to me. I'm a fan of cards, not grading companies. And I think most people would agree with that. Now, Andy, for me, hobby tip of the week. I'm going to start here. If you bid on a card, be ready to pay for it. Okay. It's a big controversy about this John Cena Color Blast card. Once again, a different sport, but someone didn't pay because the Color Blast first auction that got to market went for like $12K and the other ones were going for $8K. And the person on eBay said, well, I can't justify actually paying you when the other ones are going for $4,000. That's BS. If you commit to buying a card, okay, buy it. Buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. Don't give me the dog did it, my kid did it, they got a hold of the phone, especially if it's a higher end card. If you bid on it, Andy, pay for it. Bottom line, end of story.
Bottom line in the story, yeah, you got to, man. You got to maintain the integrity of the hobby. I mean, this is just, you know, this is, I mean, this is just a fundamental rule of doing ethical, fair business, and you know, building that reputation. Each one of us have a reputation to uphold within the hobby, and it's just plain old good business practice. If you're going to bid on it, be prepared to pay for it. And the thing is, like, yes, you should be knowledgeable that this is the only listing on eBay, and there is going to be a lot of people, you know, potentially bidding on it. But this is a brand new product, so there could be more on eBay in the next week or two. Be aware that you're paying more because this is the first one released. This is the first one on eBay, and this is the only one as of right now. And you got to understand that, yeah, this comes out of a pack of cards that people are ripping like right now as we talk. So, you know, there could be another one ripped in tomorrow, and then it goes up on eBay. And so those are the kind of things just like, you know, you got to be aware of, and you can't hold that against somebody. If you're bidding on it, you got to pay for it, man.
Yeah, and the second part of that is, let's say you do pull this Color Blast card, okay? Some of you are looking at it now. It wasn't ever listed on eBay for $50. The guy ended up just doing a 99-cent, let it ride, no reserve, and it went for $12,000. And other sales came in for $8,000, and that's why the buyer didn't end up paying for it. He just said, "I can't justify." No, you committed to paying it. So that's the bottom line. The second thing I would say is, with new release cards, understand, once again, I know it seems so sucky to pull a Trevor Lawrence card and not actually get to see him play the next year. But, you know, with new releases, Andy, sometimes the best time to list it is just to list it, and don't even do a 7-day auction. Do a 1-day auction, do a 3-day auction. And, you know, that means your card is selling the fastest. Or, as we oftentimes say on the channel, not really big auction fans in general. Buy it now, set your price, and whatever happens, happens. So the inverse of that is also true, Andy. You know, could the seller have done a 1-day or a 3-day with the Cena card? Potentially, yeah. But just keep in mind that the hype cycle for certain sets of cards is also very important.
Yeah, very, very important, because newer the product, when it's first immediately released, that is when it is the hottest, and people are going on eBay, see what's available. And if you've got the eBay one of one, the only one on there, people are going to pay more for that. You can charge more for that. I like to do the buy it nows, Carter. They also have that button now on eBay that says require immediate payment. I don't mess around anymore. I'm clicking that button. So because I've also had the experience of where people will make an offer or buy it now and then not pay. And I'm like, seriously? And then I end up having to cancel the transaction, potentially cost myself 5 to 7 days. And during the season, this could be extremely detrimental to the value of a card if you're trying to seize a nice little, demand spike from a big game or something. And so to avoid that, click buy it now, click that little under preferences, click that little require immediate payment button. You don't have to mess with that, man.
Plays of the week, Andy. I'm going to let you go first. Go right on ahead, my friend.
All right. Well, I mean, so of course I've got my eye on a lot of skill position guys.
Let's go.
Is your play of the week going to be a quarterback?
Yeah, I'm gonna do QBs. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go to the running back position. And I'm going to talk about NFC North team. The NFC North is wide open. You've got the Bears in complete rebuild mode. You got the Detroit Lions, who finished almost dead last year. They're going to be a little bit better this year, I think, but they're still in rebuild mode as well with Jared Goff behind center. Then you got the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. And the guy I want to talk about is A.J. Dillon on the Green Bay Packers. I'm going back to A.J. Dillon because I've seen his values going considerably lower. You look at, for example, Jonathan Taylor, who finished as the number 1 RB. A lot of people still have him ranked as the number 1 RB in a run-heavy offense in Indianapolis for 2022. But his value and his values are like $350 for a raw Silver Prism auto card. Well, you look at A.J. Dillon on the Green Bay Packers, big market size. So we know that adds a lot. Same age as Jonathan Taylor, probably less career carries than Jonathan Taylor. Actually, I'm pretty certain of that. And you've got the Green Bay Packers who lost Devontae Adams, which is a game changer. So I think that they probably are going to run the ball a little bit more. Okay. A.J. Dillon took over more and more targets last year. He showed to be competent in the receiving game. Aaron Jones is now going to be like 29 this year, something like that, 28 or 29. So he's getting older. And A.J. Dillon was taking more and more carries away from him, more and more routes run away from him to where it was almost A.J. Dillon 50%, Aaron Jones 50%, and A.J. Dillon was getting high value touches and routes run as well. So he's sneaking his way in there to take over that backfield. Aaron Jones, also the way he signed his contract, I think that he's probably going to be out after 2022. So, you have that going for A.J. Dillon as well. And A.J. Dillon's in the hobby, running Dillon's deals, breaking football cards, getting Justin Herbert to sign his cards and, doing PSA reveals and all kinds of cool stuff. So, like, A.J. Dillon with a $50 or a $40 rookie ticket auto and Silver Prism auto is just like a no-brainer investment to me.
Yeah, I am a little, I do like players that are in the hobby, right? So Bobby Witt Jr., the baseball star, is like really huge into it. And he's like the number 1 prospect, not named Wander Franco. And Wander's into it, right? And now you have A.J. Dillon, but Trevor Lawrence is also big into the hobby with signatures, his own cards and all that stuff. So I like seeing that. I think that's only good things. Obviously, Peyton Manning was at the Mint Collective and all that good stuff. So I like that. I like the A.J. Dillon play. I'm going to give you a few QBs to keep an eye out for. I understand that Trey Lance is in a better situation with the better coach and better pieces surrounding him. And I understand Trevor Lawrence is, the crown jewel. And then Mac Jones, he was the most successful of the rookie quarterbacks in year 1. I'm still a believer in Justin Fields for a few reasons, Andy. The first thing is, I don't know how I feel about the NFC North, right? The Packers have been elite for so long. There's got to be some sort of regression, knowing that they lost, to me, a wide receiver that was clearly the centerpiece of their offense. Not a big believer in what the Vikings have going for them, even though, they do have a new coach. And then the Lions are the Lions. Look, are the Bears in rebuild mode? Yes. Do they have the worst roster in that division? Yes. But keep in mind the Chicago market.
Mm.
They've never had a star quarterback. I know they had McMahon, but McMahon was like the third or fourth best player on that team, right? The Bears have never had a superstar market in an absolutely ridiculous professional sports city in Chicago. No doubt a top 5 sports city. And if Justin Fields is a star, he immediately becomes the biggest star in Chicago. Top 5 market size. I just see huge potential with a dual threat quarterback and a non-Matt Nagy play caller. So I just think that there's so much hype. There's so much upside. We're looking at rookie ticket autos right now. And I understand that we've said during this episode to fade buying, the new shiny thing, but those prices just don't make sense to me. I don't think Justin Fields is that far off of Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance. In fact, Andy, I think he's better. I do. So I love Justin Fields. Tyler Huntley, I still love it, right? Zig when everyone else is zagging. We've seen him play well. He doesn't have many autographed products. Basically just the NFL rookie ticket auto. It's very simple, right? There's not as much variance with that. It's a little bit easier to say, okay, I want a Tyler Huntley card. Which auto should I get? Rookie ticket auto, because it's the only one you can find really of him in a professional uniform. So those two quarterbacks I find very interesting. I'm also interested in looking into a few wide receivers that have hit new destinations. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is someone going to Kansas City that I find to be very interesting. I felt like Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay locked in a little too much on Devontae Adams, where with Kansas City, everybody's going to eat. So those are just a few players I'm looking at right now, Andy. But as you know, personally, I am looking to grow 2 players, my Drew Brees collection and my Peyton Manning collection. Kind of a long-term thing. I'm not in any rush getting any certain one card. So that's where some of my money is going right now. So those are my plays as far as current guys are concerned.
Where's the Honey Badger, man? What's going on with him?
So I just picked up another one. PSA 10 white sparkle mosaic from last year in his Chiefs uniform. And I honestly thought we would have known by now where he's actually going to go. We still don't know. So what I did last week, Andy, was, I'm going on a bunch of trips. I'm going to England here in a few weeks. As you grow with your PC, you do start to whittle down your collection, right? What are some cards that I absolutely don't have to have? So like I'm selling, some of them, and I'm putting some of them up for like 99-cent auctions. Like this one's out of like 500. It is a rookie auto, but it's a sticker auto. Do I want to keep the card? Yes. It's at the end of the world though for me to sell it and take advantage of this small little hype cycle for him. Once again, it's one of the few that I'm selling. I should be selling more actually, but yeah, Andy, I'm still looking to buy Honey Badger as always because that's my PC baby.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, there's, I'm a big PC guy. I have a few LSU players now. Russell Gage has become a new one of those guys for me.
I like it.
I just the more I research on Russell Gage, the more I look at the Tom Brady effect on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm getting really excited for Russell Gage to have some big spike games early in the season, and of course Lombardi Lenny right there for Brady to hand the ball off to or dump it off. Man, I'm excited about some of those LSU guys on Tampa Bay.
So make sure you give this podcast 5-star reviews, subscribe, ring the bell, and until next time, baby.
Peace. I have my hype index charts for running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends done, so we could do those over the next few weeks too.
Yeah.